Hey everybody, this is Josh with Hi-Fidelity Records. Just coming to you today to do a little tribute to someone who's near and dear to my heart, and that is Mr. Larry Topper. Now, if you've been following me through my career in this business, you know that Larry means a lot to me. He gave me a chance to come and pick up his collection and negotiate for his collection and bring it all the way back from the Bronx to Kansas when I was employed by Analog Productions and Acoustic Sounds. Larry was one of the greatest record collectors of all time, but not only that, Larry was just a great guy in general. I mean, we spent hours on the telephone before I even met him talking about records, talking about music, and I really cherish those conversations. Larry, we can say I wouldn't be here without him, and I will forever remember him and remember our time together. But what I wanted to show you is an unedited interview that I did with Larry while I was in his apartment there in Co-op City in the Bronx about his time collecting, how he started collecting, why he was collecting, what he had in his collection, and just a little bit about music and what it meant to him. So without further ado, Larry Topper. Okay, we're here today with our friend Larry Topper, originally from Queens, but now here lives here in the Bronx. And so, Larry, talk to us a little bit about the provenance of this collection and how you started collecting, becoming interested in music and collecting records.
Well, I'm a boomer, so post-war baby, and the 50s were very restrictive musically speaking. Most of it came out of Hollywood. There was always some Hollywood kid star they were trying to make a music person, but they didn't write or record their own stuff or didn't seem like serious musicians. A lot of surf stuff coming in and out, some serious stuff. I mean, guys like Link Ray we heard about, hard to buy his records because we were East Coast. The Beach Boys, of course, everybody heard of them, but way beyond all of that stuff, I mean, I was hooked on UK music. I was reading a magazine called Rave, or Rave Up, I think it was, and get it on my local newsstand, come out every month, and they were talking about people like Steve Winwood and the Yardbirds and Eric Clapton and just guys that we never saw here in the States until like years later, but kept it in the back of my mind. They looked like they were having fun out in the UK. There wasn't much of a great scene going on in New York itself, but things were popping on the West Coast. Haight-Ashbury, I mean, all those groups were coming up and doing live gigs, and everybody was like getting press. And I was reading about it in these mimeograph papers like Crawdaddy and Rolling Stone, and they weren't, official publications, but they were being distributed down in the Village and places like that. And I'd pick up a copy and couldn't wait to get the album. Although they'd never tell you when the album was being released, they'd only say they're touring the West Coast, playing these gigs, and this is what's going on, and getting great reactions. And it was the infancy of writing about music, so even some of those guys, Ralph Gleason and all those guys, were just starting out, and nothing was official. It was just trying to get official at that point. So after reading about the stuff in the UK, stuff going on in the West Coast, not much of a scene in New York, I just start to visit the Village a lot, and the more and more record stores popped up. I made friends with these people when they'd open their stores, and we strike up relationships, and before you know it, the 60s is pretty much gone. I bought up about as much as I could get. Few UK pressings I'd find, things like, I think it was 70-something when Aftermath came out, and the British copy of Aftermath on Decca was completely different than the London copy. It had different songs on it. My friend, his father went to the UK and he brought back a Rubber Soul that had different cuts on it. And the American one hadn't come out yet. I could have killed him for a copy of that UK. He didn't want to sell it. He didn't want to part with it. But I got my copy eventually. Just took time, and I had to do a lot of detective work. Running in and out of stores, relationships were the key. I tell them, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. If it crosses your path, put it under your desk. When I come in the store, I'm willing to buy it if it's good. And I always look for things in proper condition. If it was trashed, if somebody was selling a used record, it wasn't for me if it was dog-eared. I try and get a promo copy if I could, a white label, something that I knew was going to be rare, something as close to the master tape as I could, because I had worked in a studio a couple of years, and I realized the closest you could come to what's actually going on in the studio is off the tape, right? But things were getting complicated. These guys were making multi-track records on 16, 24-track machines, multi-million-dollar machines, and the switching boards and everything was getting like really upgraded to handle all this information, and a different way of recording actually happened. People didn't sit around in a circle with a microphone in front of them and jam with their friends and their fellow band musicians. They could be in different studios. They could be, isolated. The drums was too loud, so we'll put him in a separate room. Stuff like that was going on. It was just being built. Nobody knew how to do it. I mean, what was it? Botnick did the Door stuff, and damn, all of a sudden you began to know the real quality of what a good engineer could do and produce in the studio, because you heard it on vinyl.
How did you know what to collect? You seem like you have all the right stuff in your collection. You mentioned the white label promos.
As
you mentioned
things got on, I started working on Wall Street for quite a few years. A Fortune 500 company. I had a little more money. I could get around lunchtimes. They had a lot of record stores down in that area. Get into the Village on my lunch hour and just go through these amazing import stores that were bringing things in every week. As something would get released, I would look through the boxes with the guy who was opening the box. Sometimes he got stuck in customs, so the box would be late. I'd hang around. I'd have lunch with the guy or something. We'd sit around and talk. He needed some work on his system. I'd go up to his house and work on his system, because he lived locally near his store. And we became friends, and that happened over the years. Other people were just really righteous people back in the day. They themselves were collectors. We got to the Bowie years, things like that. One guy owned a store, Rebel in the West Village. I liked him very much. He always kept cool stuff for me, and to this day, I find him on Amazon. I couldn't believe it was still a third-party seller on Amazon.
Right.
Still getting me some hard-to-find stuff. So I'm happy to cultivate these relationships over the years. Anybody who's interested in music and talked about it and wrote about it, I was interested in. And that cued me to places to go and to find this stuff.
What was it, as we moved into the digital age, into the 80s, the advent of the compact disc, what was it that kept you collecting the records, during that time?
Well, it was interesting because I became a commuter, right? My company moved out to New Jersey, so I'm in my car a lot. And what's my car offering me? A cassette deck, and if I was lucky, I could put a CD changer in the trunk if I did it myself, because they weren't even offered it, when you bought your car. So now I'm collecting CDs and cassettes. And I'm wondering, where's this all leading? Because the music's not sounding better than I heard it with LP, but now at least it's portable. And the 2 hours I had commute each way, I could get down and boogie while I was driving. And that was okay with me. That was a trade-off. Super quality for convenience. And I realize that's what America's going through right now. It's about convenience. This is way before MP3s and, Napster and all of that stuff trashed music for a decade, because we lost a whole generation who didn't understand what good sound was. So even when I was taking an express bus to and from Wall Street, I would take my Walkman Pro and I would record on my Nagamichi ZX9 tape machine copies off my LP. And then I said, these LPs are going to be too valuable. They're first day issues. I buy them when they just came out on the day they were released. I should really archive them. Know where they are, keep them well, put them in good sleeves. Not keep them in the heat. I always had an air-conditioned apartment, which was cool. Stack them kind of tight, but not too tight. And just let them curate like a good bottle of wine.
Of course.
And then I discovered other electronic ways of listening to my music. And when I retired in 2013, I bought this system called Kaleidoscape. A lot of people use it for movies, but it's a really convenient way to listen to your digital music. So for 3 years, I put all my digital music up on Kaleidoscape. Not that I'm plugging them or anything, but they kind of saved my life, because once I got injured and couldn't walk anymore, it was a way for me to get my LPs off the shelf without ever having to move anything. I could sit there and listen to things. I could compare pressings. I could take a gold master sound from CBS and compare it to a 50-year issue of Kind of Blue, because I had both. And one trumped the other. There was no doubt about it. And that's when I said, it's a good thing you didn't listen to those original LPs years ago. And in between, guys like Hobson came along and drove me crazy by reissuing everything worth hearing. And then after that, Chad took his library over and continued to improve on it.
Sure. So what role do you think Chad and us here at Acoustic Sounds played?
I started going to the audio shows, and I'm in one show, I think it was in many years ago in the Waldorf Astoria. And I see all these record guys setting out one after the other. They all pretty much looked the same and had the same stuff. And there was Chad. His face was glowing. He looked like he was happy in what he was doing. And I said, let me go talk to him. I said, what do you got? Anything of interest? And he pulls out this Mobile Fidelity of, what was the title? The one with the girl on it?
Blind Faith?
No, Miles Davis.
Oh,
Someday My Prince Will Come.
Someday My Prince Will Come. He says you gotta hear a Mobile Fidelity version of it. I was a Miles fan from the get-go, because back in the day when I was 16 years old, I went to a party and met his son briefly on New Year's Eve. And next thing I know, I'm being invited to a New Year's party at Miles Davis's brownstone on the East Side. And I'm going, nah, this ain't happening to me, you know? And make a long story short, I wasn't invited into the party after his son went in the door, but Miles came out and said to us at the doorway, I can't let you in, guys. I know you're new friends of my son. The party's really hopping there. Here's a few bucks. Go down to Chinatown and enjoy Chinatown on New Year's Eve. And that's pretty much what we did. I thought he was the coolest dude in the world. Talking to 16-year-olds like we were adults. And, you know, it's like our first New Year's out that our parents weren't involved with. So that was that story, meet Miles.
Okay. So why Acoustic Sounds, you know?
I just thought he was an upright fellow who wanted to do the best. Then when he got his pressing plants going, I was going, oh, this guy is serious. He's not just buying and selling records and getting stuff pressed. Over the years, he had come out with some very interesting stuff. I mean, Billie Holiday and artists like that weren't being repressed anyplace. He was doing them. Got me into jazz, got me into some audiophile stuff that I never would have found. And then, you know, it was him selling Hobson stuff, and then I forget what was going on back then, but he did some turnabouts, some classical turnabout stuff that was really cheaply pressed by the company originally, and he put out some nice stuff. And no, I was always impressed with the work that he did or tried to do. And I knew it's always an issue when you're dealing with people who own the master tapes. You got to be a really good salesman to let them know you're going to do right by their artists. And they're not going to hand you over those master tapes unless they think that you're an upright fellow. So I knew he had a good reputation.
What do you want to say to folks who, you know, who are going to be, you know, having pieces of your collection here in the future? I mean, what do you want folks...
I just want to say to them, treat it as good as I treated it. I knew its value the minute I picked it up, and I knew that I was just the courier for the music. I was somebody going to hold on to it for my lifetime. And when things were beginning to like go south health-wise with me, I know I needed to pass it on. So what I needed to do was get these records in the hands of somebody who valued them. And I knew Chad was the man. And thank God he sent two upright guys to do the job, because it wasn't an easy job.
All right. Well, thanks, Larry. We really appreciate you. It's been a privilege to be here. It's been a privilege to see
Great fun for me too. A little cathartic, but great fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. Have a good. We'll see you down the road, my friend.
Take care, fellas.
Yes, sir.